got your Mac and Mac guys. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald here on Birds 365 Football Friday. And they have scattered into the wind. The Eagles, after their final off-season workout, spring workout, OTA, call it what you want. Just don't call it a practice because they're not really practicing. They're going 7-on-7 at most. But they got a whole bunch of individual drills in and a lot of classroom training. According to Nicholas Morrow, more situational football than he'd ever heard in his life discussed in this offseason, being part of the Eagles offseason program. And good on the Eagles for that. They do put an emphasis on it. And I do believe, despite a couple of breakdowns in the Super Bowl, part of the reason why they were 14-3 was they were as situationally ready as any team in the National Football League. But they're all going their separate ways for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong, John. They have not stated yet, announced yet, when the first day of training
not official, but July 25th, 26th, somewhere around that range.
Right. It'll be heading into the last week of June, but don't know exactly where it's going to be, which is basically 5 weeks for everybody to do what they want to do what they need to do. Who's got Jalen Carter watch duty?
Well, on the record, nobody. You got to trust people, but I'm sure, they're going to keep in a little bit of an extra eye on what's going on there. You have to. Look, that's, every NFL coach goes through the same thing in this lull, and they just hope that number doesn't pop up on the phone with the bad news, and not only about Jalen Hurts, but 90 guys all across the league. Things happen. We're talking about young people. We're talking about maturity. Bill Parcells.
Let me just jump in, and I was going to let you go. You said Jalen Hurts. You meant Jalen Carter. Because if there's one person who you don't have to worry about the maturity thereof, it's Jalen Hurts.
I meant as a whole, young people. I'm not talking about Jalen Hurts. You don't have to worry about Jalen Hurts.
No, not even a little bit.
The whole, you have to worry about most young people. Most, as Jeffrey said, most people are like Jeffrey and me and you, or knuckleheads when they're younger, and learn and you have some experience. The Jalen Hurts is the luxury. Jalen Carter's just a normal kid. Got in some trouble, and I don't want to undersell it because it was serious trouble, but he's not the first young kid to do some knucklehead things, and he won't be the last. And that's why I said, Bill Parcells had that great quote where every time one of Bill Parcells' guys got a head coaching job, he had a list for them. And one bullet point on the list was, there are 4 or 5 things that happen every day in the NFL that you don't want to happen. And if you can't deal with that, you got to get another profession, because it might be a gambling suspension. It might be as something as goopy as a wildfire in Canada, and you got to ship things around, something not as serious. Crap happens, and every NFL coach goes on this lull, and they hope they don't get the phone call. And there's not much more you can do, Jody. You can't follow the guys around. You just tell them, you reinforce it, and you cross your fingers.
Understood. And if we go through this 5-week summer period and Jalen Carter comes back and there have been no issues whatsoever, no reports started, nothing whatsoever, if people want me to apologize, I will, that I even brought this up. But I'm sorry. There's a reason why he's a Philadelphia Eagle. It's because of the incidents that he had during after his collegiate career was over and done with. If he didn't, he wouldn't be an Eagle. He would have been the 3rd pick in the draft, or the 4th pick in the draft, or the 5th. He would not have fallen down to a spot where the Eagles could trade to number 9 and got him. So to just pretend that he's just another one of the rookies is short-sighted. That's just not the fact, Jack. There's a reason why he's an Eagle, because he had some issues. Now, hopefully nothing rears its ugly head. Hopefully the kid is seeing that he probably cost himself hundreds of thousands of dollars by where he fell down in the draft, that he doesn't want to make that mistake again, and he learned his lesson, and he is getting more mature because he's hanging around with more mature guys in the NFL and former teammates or members of the Philadelphia Eagles. I hope there is no issue whatsoever with Jalen Carter this year, this 5-week break that they have. But I'm keeping an eye on it. If I'm the Eagles, I'm sorry. I'm being proactive rather than reactive, waiting till after. Well, you got your phone. I got my phone. I get that call and say, uh-oh, we got to deal with that.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you do. I mean, you can't. I mean, the NFLPA will be all over you if you try to, I don't know, put a private detective on them. I mean, there's not much you can do. You might check in a little bit more. You might make a phone call.
That's what I'm referring
to. Every bit, a little bit more frequency than some other players. There's not much more you can do. I mean, there really isn't. You're not permitted to hire a babysitter or do anything of that nature. So, you know, it's, and that's one of the things I kind of argued with the NFLPA over the years. I mean, the structure is more valuable than they make it out to be. So I get, you don't, it's a fine line, because if you allow teams to have players in the facility, they'll push it. You know, most teams will push it. Maybe not the Eagles, but most teams will push it, and they'll start requesting more and more of the players. So I get it from their perspective, but I don't think they value the structure part of it. The fact that, you know, I'm not, you know, I went to Catholic school. I'm not very religious, but there was always one sort of proverb, whatever it's called. Idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Sure.
That's what always stuck with me, not because I'm a religious person, but it just makes sense. When you have nothing to do, there are more opportunities to go, I'm going to go do something that I probably shouldn't do. It might even be just going out to the bar, doing whatever, and then something happens. You have a few too many drinks, whatever. If you got something to do, it's less likely you're going to get in trouble. And I always thought the NFLPA didn't value the structure part of it as much as they should.
Well, and each team has its own individual structure and how much they're going to keep an eye on players during this downtime. This is the longest downtime of the entire year. Here's a possibility. Because you said, what are you going to do, Jordy? You can't have a private eye following him around. I get that. Does Dom D'Alessandro go to any of his Georgia teammates, specifically the two guys who were here last year as rookies and went through it all, either a Jordan Davis or a Nakobe Dean, and say, hey, do me a favor. Make sure you're calling your ex-teammate. Just check in with him, see what he's doing, see if you can get him back here a week earlier or whatever. Do you lean on the teammates, be they veteran guys like a Fletcher Cox or a former teammate from Georgia, to just keep more of an eye on them than you normally would? Make a couple more calls than you do if you're Dom D'Alessandro or Nick Sirianni, either one of them. Do you go to those players already on the team with the Eagle culture already ingrained in them and go, yeah, do us a favor. You stay in touch with Jalen.
Yeah, Jordan Davis, sorry. By the way, I don't want to get beat up by Dom. It's Dom DeSandro. So Dom will beat me up if I don't get his name.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. It's a big dude. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Davis already talked about that. Jordan, I think one of the things really that fans overlook a lot when it comes to rookie players in the NFL specifically is just the upheaval of their lives. Remember, most of them are 21, 22. Most of them are moving away from what they know to a new city. Sometimes you get drafted by your hometown team or whatever, but rarely. And in the case of somebody like Jalen Carter, you're going, to Philadelphia for the first time. So what do you got to find a place to live. You're in a hotel. Jordan Davis was talking about all this last week. He's been through it. You don't know where to go. As simple as, buying groceries. Where do you go? Where are you going to live? You're going to live in South Philly. You're going to live close to the facility. You're going to live in South Jersey. If you have the means as a first-round pick, you might want to upgrade to the suburbs, whatever. You got to find a place to live. You got to do all this stuff as a very young person. And he's already said, not only with Jalen Carter, but also Kaylee Ringo and Nolan Smith. He's been through what they're going through now. And he says, if it's just, hey, get them out of the apartment, get them out of the hotel room it is now. Go get something to eat, make sure they're not staring at the same four walls. So he's already very cognizant of it. Yeah, Dom's a big part of, and that's everybody, not just Jalen Carter. But yeah, it's more, I would imagine they have more of a beat on Jalen Carter than others. And they have to, and they should.
Hopefully 5 weeks from now, when John is leaving early to go over to the first practice, summer practice, that we've got nothing but, hey, can't wait to see Jalen Carter out there on the field in pads for the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, Johnny Mac, I think Jeff Knox brought this up, worried about the overall back seven on the defense. Certainly that includes linebackers. Christian Ellis has made some nice plays here in the limited workouts that the Eagles have had, but he's opened some people's eyes. We shall see. Safety position over the practices, and again, limited as they were against that you guys were allowed to see. Most people expect Reed Blankenship to step in as a starter. Eagles lose both of their starting safeties via free agency. Blankenship filled in last year when CJ went down with injury. Just a foregone conclusion. Edmonds came in from Pittsburgh. You and I talked about it at the time. Not a fit in what we think of as the quote-unquote Fangio defense, but a guy who's been a starter on a pretty good defense the last several years. They draft Sidney Brown in the third round. You still have some leftover guys who are here who haven't made their way into the rotation at starting safety. With 5 weeks down before they come back and the need to hit the ground running, how do you look at the safety room right now for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I think the interesting part is going to be where is Sidney Brown and how he fits in. Can he be a starter as a rookie? I think so. But we'll see. I mean, he was still on the third team yesterday, so we're talking about 100 minutes in the spring, but they've started him out slowly. He was behind. Forget about Reed and Terrell. They were the starters, but Justin Evans and Kayvon Wallace were the second team, and then Sidney's on the third team with Tristan McCullum. So they're starting him out slowly. I still think he's got an opportunity to push. And if he's going to push somebody, I think he's going to push Reed. I think Terrell Edmonds is going to be a starting safety on this team. He looked very impressive again. It's very small sample size. And yeah, there's no changes. He's playing post safety. They're playing the same scheme. It's not like they're putting him in the box and taking advantage of what he did in Pittsburgh. But he's very athletic. The reason he was a first-round pick is because he's tremendously athletic. Most people thought he got overdrafted, but because of that skill set. So he can run. And who knows, Jody, maybe the Eagles were ahead of the curve and maybe Pittsburgh was using him incorrectly. Who knows? I'm not saying that's the case. But he's really athletic. He made a nice play on a deep throw to Olamide Zaccheaus down the field, broke it up. A lot of range, and he's supposed to be a box safety, but he can run. So, I think when I started this 100 minutes, I thought, Sidney Brown's probably going to be a starter. I'm not so sure now. I think there's a little bit more of a luxury that if he doesn't hit the ground running, because it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult for first round guys. Think about Terrell Edmonds, right? He was the 28th pick in the draft or somewhere around there. Sidney Brown is a 66th player in the draft. All right. He's got potential, but typically those guys don't step in and become stars right away. I think there is a little bit of at least luxury now to where they can take things. They don't have to push things, maybe. And that's a good thing.
And I remember when Edmonds signed, because unlike watching every snap of every Eagle game, I don't watch every snap of every Steeler game. But he's been in the league long enough that I saw him play, and I said, wow, that's a good signing by the Eagles. He's a nice player. And you said the next day, yeah, he is, Joe, but I don't know if he fits the Fangio system. And you're right to say that, because his strength is tackling and coming up and making plays close to the line of scrimmage. So I understood your commentary. Here's the only thing that scared me about Edmonds, and tell me if I'm overstating this or not. I have certain respect for certain teams around the league, sometimes even more respect for one side of the ball than the other. I think the Steelers have been a damn good defense the last 25 years. However long, and yeah, some up, some down, but many more up than down. And they basically let them walk away. The Eagles weren't like they outbid the Steelers for Terrell Edmonds. They got him for a very reasonable number for a guy who you're plugging as a potential starter. And I wondered, why was Pittsburgh so readily capable of letting him walk away? That was the only thing that scared me, because I liked him as a player. I liked the salary that the Eagles got him at. They certainly had a need at the position. So I was like, that's a thumbs up transaction for Howie Roseman. The only thing that didn't jive for me was, why is Pittsburgh just letting them walk out the door the way they are? What do you think it was?
Yeah, I'm with you, because I'm with you. I mean, they're one of the best organizations. They typically make good decisions.
Right.
And then the second part is the contract. I mean, let's be honest. It's not just Pittsburgh, because there's other teams out there, and they're all not willing to give Terrell Edmonds. And I remember talking about what he signed at, because I didn't understand it. I'm like, I'm with you. I'm like, this guy started 70 games for a good defense, and he can't get more than, $2.5 million. He's still relatively young.
Yep.
He hasn't had an injury history. He's 26 years old. He came in. I mentioned the athleticism. He runs a 4.47 at 220 pounds. He's got a vertical leap over 41 inches. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete. What the hell's there's a disconnect? I don't know. I imagine I'm going to see it at some point. Here's the positive, though. And this, I was thinking about this. Pittsburgh has one of the best safeties in football, and they play Minkah Fitzpatrick, and they play more of a traditional defensive system where it's free safety, strong safety. So Minkah's, if he's not the best free safety in football, if he's not the best center fielder, he's in the conversation. Yep. So you got to play the other position, because you're not better than Minkah, and that's not an insult. Maybe Derwin James could say, all right, I might be in the conversation. That's about it. So he had to play the other position, and maybe he can play more of the post safety. But the contract is what disturbs me, because it's not only Pittsburgh. Everybody else had a shot at it. You're not going to give this guy 2 years and $10 million. You don't have to break the bank. So that part scares me a little bit. And all I've seen is 100 minutes, and those 100 minutes, Jody's look pretty good.
Look pretty good. That's good news for Eagle fan, because that is a position that you need to keep your eye on. Major changes. Your 2 starting safeties walk out the door, and you got to replace both of them, which if you're moving a guy like Blankenship up from depth, well, now you got to replace your depth as well. Yeah, only 100 minutes, but if they look good, that's good news for the Eagle fans. All right, we'll talk safety, we'll talk linebacker, we'll talk quarterback, we'll talk coach. We'll talk it all with Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. He's scheduled to join us next here on Birds 365.
Do you